Hey, it's Marco here from Fair Realty, Victoria, BC. In the past year, I've made a number of videos on the topic of unconditional offers. For example, 6 months ago, I made a video called The Art of the Fake Unconditional Offer, where I talked about how you can make an unconditional offer to achieve the best possible purchase price, but when you combine that with the rescission period, you can actually mitigate a lot of the risk of a traditional unconditional offer. A month ago, I talked about how much on average, in my opinion, sellers take when they're presented with an unconditional offer in relation to a conditional offer, and it can be a substantial amount. So a lot of people are probably wondering, why do sellers take substantially less for an unconditional offer? And sometimes this can be $50,000 or $100,000. When I was doing research on these various topics pertaining to unconditional offers, I came across a lot of Reddit threads online where people said, I can't believe I made an offer on a place and I was outbid by an unconditional offer that was $20,000 less. Why wouldn't the sellers take $20,000 more from me and just wait the 8 business days for the condition? So today I'm going to tell you a little story. About 6 months ago, an agent in my office called me and she said, "Hey Marco, I have a listing. I have a buyer from Vancouver. She's very interested. She wants to write an offer right away. She's familiar with the building because the listing agent can no longer do dual agency." And this was not something I wanted to do because I have a high volume business. My business is primarily repeat clients. I really don't like working with people I don't know, especially off the cuff like this particular situation. But the agent asking me to represent this buyer was from my office, so I thought I should help out. She gave me the information to this buyer. I got in touch with the buyer. The buyer provided all the correct ID, etc., required for federal FinTrack regulations. We wrote up the offer. It was 10 days of conditions, and the offer was accepted. And then the buyer completely ghosted me, like 100% ghosted me. And the seller couldn't do anything for 10 days because there was 10 days of conditions. And the way the conditions are written is they're typically for the sole benefit of the buyer, which means the seller cannot get out of the contract for those 10 days, but the buyer can, and the buyer can simply not remove conditions. So it was a very frustrating situation because the listing agent who had referred me to this buyer, she kept phoning me, "Marco, what's going on? What's going on?" I couldn't get in touch with the buyer. And then last week, there was a group of realtors. We have a group here in Victoria. There was 1,100 of us in this private group. Someone posted a warning about an individual doing this in her name. And guess what? It was the person that had ghosted me. And then the comments started pouring in. There's well over 100 comments regarding this buyer to this point from various realtors. And from what I can see, this person has done this to at least 50 realtors from Victoria to Duncan. She simply writes up offers with conditions, then completely disappears and doesn't remove the conditions. The fundamental problem in BC is when you write an offer, you're required to provide ID, but you're not required to provide any funds. So literally anyone can write an offer and then simply not remove conditions. What I'm getting at is this is one of the many, many examples in terms of uncertainty with a conditional offer. And that is the reason why sellers take substantially less for an unconditional offer, because there's some certainty. And buyers often fail to take a look at the situation from the perspective of the seller. Sometimes the seller is really stressed out and they're willing to take less money if someone's willing to take the house unconditionally. Sometimes the seller has financial issues and they have to sell the property ASAP, which means taking an unconditional offer for less versus waiting for the conditions to be removed, potentially that offer collapsing, having to go back to market. Let me give you a personal example. About 8 years ago or 9 years ago, I had bought a pre-sale property in Croatia. Well, the developer in Croatia only gave me 2 months notice that I had to complete on the property. They were ahead of schedule on the construction of this building, but they didn't let me know, and they just sent me a notice. You have to complete within 2 months. I can't get a mortgage in Croatia. I needed cash to complete on this property, which meant I had to sell a property in Victoria. I listed one of my condos. I listed it under market. I got 7 offers, and I took an offer that was $15,000 lower than the highest offer. Why? The highest offer wanted, I think it was 11 or 12 days of conditions, but the offer that was $15,000 less was unconditional, and I had to sell my place, I had to complete on it, and I had to transfer the funds to Croatia to complete on the purchase there. And that is why I personally couldn't risk waiting that time to get those additional funds, because I was in a situation where it was very time sensitive. There's many other scenarios where people prefer, or sellers highly prefer, an unconditional offer, and that is why they will take substantially less money. And let's go back to this woman I was talking about. She has written more than 50 conditional offers from Victoria to Duncan and simply not followed through on any of them. That's it for this week. Marco Juras, Fair Realty.